The Galactic Shelter was not a happy place. It was a cold, gray building on the edge of the trade station, far away from the shining markets and busy streets. Inside the shelter, hundreds of cages lined the walls. Strange creatures from across the stars sat behind metal bars, waiting for someone to take them home. Some were beautiful, with bright colors and glowing skin. Others were strong, with sharp claws and wide wings. Those creatures were always chosen quickly. Buyers came every day, pointing, smiling, and paying large credits to take them away. But in the far corner of the shelter, there was one cage that no one touched. Inside it sat a very small dragon. This dragon was not like the others. It had dull, gray scales instead of bright, shining ones. Its wings were thin and torn, as if they had never fully grown. Its eyes were tired, heavy, almost lifeless. While other creatures made sounds to call attention, this little dragon stayed silent. It did not move much, only lowering its head on its tiny claws as if waiting for the end. The workers at the shelter barely looked at it anymore. They whispered among themselves, "That one won't last long. Too weak. Too sick. Nobody wants it." And they were right. Day after day, visitors came and left. No one even stopped to look at the small dragon. It was invisible, forgotten, like dust in a busy market. But on that quiet evening, something changed. A tall man in a dark coat entered the shelter. His steps were steady, his eyes sharp, as if he had seen many worlds and many battles. His name was Captain Elias. He was human, one of the few humans who dared to travel alone in this part of the galaxy. Most people knew humans as tough survivors, but also strange, because they often made choices no other species could understand. The shelter keeper greeted him quickly, hoping for a good sale. "Welcome, Captain. We have fine creatures today. Strong beasts, rare aliens, even a feathered predator from Delta Prime. Come, look here." The man walked slowly through the rows of cages. He glanced at glowing animals, at clawed hunters, at winged lizards with sharp teeth. The keeper's voice grew louder as he tried to impress him. "This one can tear through steel. This one can breathe fire. This one is already trained to obey commands." But Elias did not stop. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he passed cage after cage. The workers grew confused. Why wasn't he interested in the best creatures? Finally, Elias reached the far corner. His eyes landed on the small, silent dragon. The creature barely moved. It looked up only for a moment, and in that moment Elias saw something different. The dragon's eyes were not just sad. They were filled with pain, but also with a tiny spark. A spark that refused to die no matter how weak its body looked. Elias stood still. The shelter keeper followed him, nervous. "Oh, that one? Captain, forget it. It's useless. Too weak. It won't survive a week. Nobody wants that creature." The man did not answer. He only leaned closer to the bars, studying the dragon. The little creature shivered under his gaze. It expected rejection again. It expected him to walk away like all the others. But Elias did not walk away. Instead, he spoke quietly, almost to himself. "Sometimes, the smallest spark can start the greatest fire." The workers blinked. "Captain, surely you don't want that one?" Elias turned to face them. His eyes were calm but strong. "I'll take it." The workers tried to argue. "But sir, it will only cause trouble. Is sick. Cannot fight. Why waste your credits?" Elias shook his head. "I'm not here to buy a weapon. I'm here to give this creature a chance." The shelter fell silent. Even the other animals seemed to pause. No one had ever spoken like this in that place. The papers were signed, the credits transferred, and the cage door creaked open. For the first time, the baby dragon was free. It did not rush out. It did not roar or spread its wings. It only stepped slowly into the man's waiting hands, trembling with weakness. Its small body felt light, almost weightless, like it could disappear at any moment. Elias held it gently against his chest. The dragon let out a weak breath, almost like a sigh, and rested its head on his shoulder. For the first time in its short life, it felt warmth. The workers watched in disbelief. "He's really taking it?" the weakest one. Elias did not listen to them. He walked out of the shelter, carrying the little dragon with steady steps. The door closed behind him, leaving the workers whispering about the strange human and his strange choice. As Elias crossed the busy trade station, people stared. They saw the tiny dragon in his arms and laughed. Why would anyone take that useless thing? It won't live long. Poor fool, wasting his credits. But Elias did not care. He looked down at the creature, at its tired eyes, and whispered softly so only it could hear. You are not useless. You are not forgotten. You are mine now, and together, we will see what you truly are. The baby dragon blinked slowly. His body was weak, but deep inside, something stirred. A tiny spark of hope, something it had never felt before. And that was the moment everything began to change. The journey back to Elias's ship was long and heavy with silence. The trade station was full of light and noise. Merchants shouting prices, travelers carrying strange goods, security drones flying overhead. But the human captain walked through it all without a word. In his arms, the baby dragon lay still. Its small body shivered now and then, but it made no sound. Its eyes closed, as if sleep was easier than facing the world. People stopped to look at them. Some pointed, some laughed, some shook their heads. Why would a man like him carry a dying pet? Someone whispered. Humans are strange, another replied. He should have bought something powerful, not that thing. But Elias ignored them all. His mind was steady, his steps firm. He reached the docking bay where his ship waited. It was not a grand vessel. Not shiny like the merchant ships, not armed like the pirate crafts. It was old, patched with metal plates from many battles, its engines humming like an old beast that refused to die. The ship's name was Iron Wind. Elias stepped inside, and the doors closed behind him with a hiss. The noise of the station faded, leaving only the soft hum of the ship. He carried the dragon through narrow halls, past blinking panels and quiet rooms, until he reached the medical bay. He laid the little creature gently on a padded table. The dragon blinked weakly, too tired to resist. Elias pulled out a small scanner, moving it over the creature's thin body. Numbers and symbols flashed on the screen. The results were not good: malnutrition, broken wings, weak organs, a fading heartbeat. The dragon should not have survived this long. Elias frowned. Any other person would have given up. But he was human, and humans did not give up easily. He had fought on forgotten battlefields. He had seen soldiers rise from wounds that should have killed them. He had seen hope grow where none should exist. And now he saw that same fight inside this tiny dragon. He set the scanner aside and spoke softly. You've been left behind, abandoned, but you're not alone anymore. The dragon's tired eyes met his for a moment. It was too weak to understand words, but it understood the feeling. Warmth, safety, a strange sense of being wanted. Elias began to work. He mixed nutrient fluid, placed it into a small injector, and carefully gave the dragon its first dose. He wrapped its wings in soft cloth, protecting the torn edges. He placed a heat lamp above it, letting the warmth sink into its weak bones. Hours passed. The ship floated in the dark of space, engines quiet, while inside, a human captain cared for a creature everyone else had given up on. The dragon barely moved. Sometimes its tiny chest rose and fell in slow, shallow breaths. Sometimes its eyes flickered open, staring at the ceiling as if searching for something. Elias stayed close, watching, waiting. At one point, he sat beside the table and spoke again. His voice was low, steady, the voice of a man who had seen too much but still believed in something better. I don't know why I chose you, he admitted. Maybe because I saw myself in your eyes. Long ago, I was left behind too. Everyone thought I would not survive. But I did, because someone gave me a chance. He leaned closer, his hand resting near the dragon's head. Now I give you the same chance. Live, little one. Fight. Show the galaxy it was wrong about you. The dragon gave no answer, but its tail twitched slightly. Elias allowed himself a small smile. The next day was hard. The dragon refused food at first. Its body was too weak to accept it. Elias tried everything: liquid nutrients, crushed pieces of soft meat, even drops of water on its tongue. At last, the dragon swallowed a little. Just a little, but enough to keep the spark alive. When it slept, it sometimes made soft sounds, whimpers like a memory of pain. Elias stayed close, whispering calm words until it quieted again. Slowly, the creature began to recognize him. When Elias entered the room, its eyes followed him. When his hand came near, it did not flinch anymore. One night, as he adjusted the cloth around its wings, the dragon pressed its tiny head against his hand. It was weak, but it was trust. For the first time, Elias felt something stir inside his chest. Hope. But the galaxy was not kind. News traveled fast across the stations. Word spread that a human had taken a baby dragon from the shelter. Dragons were rare, valuable, and dangerous if raised well. Many wanted such a prize. Some wanted to buy it. Others wanted to steal it. One evening, while Elias checked the ship systems, a message flashed on his console. It was short, written in a language of threats. You carry something that does not belong to you. Give it up, or we will come for it. Elias stared at the message, his jaw tightening. He turned toward the medical bay, where the dragon lay under the warm light, finally sleeping peacefully. Not this time, he whispered. He deleted the message, locked the system, and prepared the ship for trouble. That night, as the iron wind drifted through silent space, Elias returned to the dragon. He sat beside it, tired but calm. You don't know it yet, he said, his voice soft. But you're stronger than they think. They only see weakness. But I see something more. A fire waiting to rise. The dragon opened its eyes slowly. For the first time, they did not look dull. A faint glow shimmered inside them, like a tiny star trying to break through the darkness. Elias smiled. Yes, that's it. Hold on to that light. The dragon blinked once, then rested its head back down. Its breathing was still shallow, but steadier now. Stronger than yesterday. And as Elias watched, he knew one thing. This adoption was more than a simple choice. It was a beginning, a path that neither he nor the galaxy could ever expect. For in the weakest, forgotten creature lay a secret that could change everything. The days passed slowly on the iron wind. Space stretched endlessly outside the windows, dark, silent, endless stars watching from the distance. Inside the ship, life was quiet too. But for the first time in a long while, Captain Elias was not alone. The baby dragon was still weak, but it was alive. Every day Elias cared for it. He gave it food in small portions, drops of medicine, and clean bandages for its broken wings. It was slow work, like watering a dying plant. But little by little, the creature began to change. It was no longer completely silent. Sometimes, when Elias entered the room, the dragon lifted its head. Sometimes its tail twitched when it smelled food. And sometimes, in the deep hours of night, it let out a soft sound, half a sigh, half a growl, as if dreaming. Elias noticed every small detail. He sat with it for long hours, watching the tiny scales shimmer faintly under the light. Most were still gray and dull, but here and there, a faint glow appeared, like sparks trying to escape a dying fire. One evening, he spoke to it while preparing food. His voice was calm, almost like he was speaking to himself. You remind me of the recruits I trained years ago. Small, scared, unsure of themselves. Everyone thought they would break. But some of them grew into the strongest soldiers I ever knew. Do you know why? The dragon looked at him with tired eyes, not understanding the words but listening anyway. Elias smiled faintly. Because they had someone who believed in them. Sometimes that's all it takes. At first, feeding was the hardest task. The dragon refused to eat solid food. Its teeth were too weak, its body too fragile. So Elias tried another way. He crushed the food into soft paste, mixed it with warm broth, and fed it carefully with a spoon. The dragon resisted at first, turning its head away. But Elias was patient. He waited, spoke softly, and tried again. Finally, the dragon opened its mouth. It swallowed a little. Just a little. Elias almost laughed at the small victory. Good, he whispered. That's the spirit. After that, feeding became easier each day. The dragon began to expect him. When the tray appeared, it lifted its head, eyes following every movement. Still ate slowly, but it was progress. A week passed, then two. The creature grew stronger. It still slept a lot, but its breathing was deeper, steadier. Its eyes began to glow faintly in the dark, like tiny embers hidden under ash. Elias found himself watching those eyes more than once, wondering what kind of fire slept inside this fragile body. One night, he sat in the med bay with a book in his hands. The dragon lay beside him, wrapped in blankets under the heat lamp. Elias read aloud, not because the dragon understood the words, but because his voice seemed to calm it. It was an old human story about courage. About a soldier who carried his wounded friend across a battlefield, refusing to leave him behind. When he closed the book, he noticed the dragon staring at him with wide eyes. For the first time, it crawled closer, pressing its small head against his arm. Elias froze for a moment, then slowly placed his hand on its back. The scales were rough, the body thin, but warm. The dragon made a low, soft sound. Not pain, not fear, something else. Trust. Elias smiled, his voice low. There you are. Finally. From that moment, something changed between them. The dragon began to follow him. Not far, not always, but enough. When Elias left the room, it tried to crawl after him, its tiny claws clicking on the metal floor. It was too weak to walk long distances, so Elias picked it up, carrying it on his arm. It liked to rest on his shoulder, its tail hanging down, its head near his ear. Sometimes it made small noises, curious ones, when Elias worked on the ship's controls. Elias found himself talking more. He told the dragon about the stars outside, about the planets he had seen, about battles fought long ago. The creature did not understand the words, but it listened. Its eyes glowed faintly, like lanterns in the dark, as if his stories gave it strength. And slowly, Elias began to realize the dragon was not just surviving. It was learning, but danger was always close. Strange signals appeared on the ship's scanners. Unmarked ships followed at a distance, watching. Raiders, pirates, hunters. They had heard the rumors. A human carrying a baby dragon. A prize beyond measure. One evening, Elias found another message waiting on his console. This time it was more direct. We know what you carry. Give it to us and you will live. Refuse and we will take it by force. Elias deleted the message without hesitation. He looked toward the dragon, which sat nearby, chewing softly on a strip of dried meat. Its eyes lifted to meet his, innocent and unaware of the danger outside. He clenched his fist. They'll have to go through me first. That night, while the ship floated in silence, Elias returned to the med bay. The dragon was resting again, curled in its blankets. He sat beside it, staring at the small creature that had already changed his life. You don't know it yet, he said softly, but you're the reason I'm still moving forward. I thought I was done with this galaxy, tired, alone. But then I saw you, and I couldn't walk away. The dragon opened one glowing eye, watching him. Elias reached out, his hand brushing over its head. The dragon did not flinch. Instead, it leaned into his touch, closing its eyes again with a soft, content sound. In that moment, Elias knew the truth. This was more than adoption. This was a bond. Silent, unspoken, but strong. And bonds like this could change destiny. But far beyond the iron wind, in the deep shadows of space, hunters were already setting their course. Ships armed with weapons, crews hungry for credits, their eyes fixed on the weakest dragon in the galaxy. They thought it would be easy prey. They did not yet know what it meant to be chosen by a human. They did not yet know what fire slept inside that fragile body. And soon, they would learn. The iron wind drifted quietly through the endless dark of space. Its engines hummed softly, carrying Captain Elias and the baby dragon farther from the trade station and into the unknown. On the surface, everything seemed calm. But Elias knew better. Danger was coming. The warnings had already reached him. Messages from raiders and hunters demanding he surrender the dragon. He had ignored them, but ignoring did not make enemies disappear. Somewhere in the shadows of the galaxy, they were watching, waiting. Elias sat in the cockpit, his eyes fixed on the scanner. Tiny dots appeared on the display, ships at a distance, keeping just far enough to avoid direct contact. He recognized the pattern. Predators circling prey. "They're patient," he muttered. But patience ends eventually. Behind him, the baby dragon sat curled on the chair. It was stronger now, eating more, its scales glowing faintly like silver touched by fire. Its wings were still wrapped in cloth, but it could crawl faster and climb onto the chair without help. It let out a soft sound, tilting its head as if sensing his unease. Elias looked back and gave a small smile. "Don't worry, I faced worse. But you might want to stay close when it starts." That night, the first attack came. The iron wind was passing through an asteroid field, sharp rocks drifting silently through space. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the cockpit as the scanner lit up with hostile signatures. 3 ships emerged from behind the asteroids, engines blazing, weapons charged. Pirates. Their leader's voice crackled through the comms. "Human captain, surrender the dragon, and we may let you live. Resist, and your ship will be nothing but scrap." Elias switched the comms off without a word. He pulled the controls, guiding the iron wind between the drifting asteroids. Blasts of plasma fire followed, streaking past the hull and lighting the dark. The baby dragon yelped at the noise, pressing against the seat. Elias steadied his voice. "Stay calm, little one. We're not done yet." The chase began. The iron wind was old, its engines weaker than the pirate ships, but Elias knew every corner of space combat. He used the asteroids as cover, weaving between massive rocks, letting enemy fire crash against them instead of his ship. Still, the pirates pressed harder. Their weapons lit up the darkness, their ships closing in. A blast struck the hull, shaking the entire vessel. Sparks flew from the panels. The dragon cried out in fear, its tiny claws gripping the chair. Elias reached over with one hand, steadying it even as his other hand steered the ship. "It's all right," he said firmly. "I promised I wouldn't let them take you, and I keep my promises." The pirates grew impatient. Their leader's voice returned, sharper this time. "Last warning, human. Give us the creature, or you will both die." Elias gritted his teeth. He had fought many battles, but this was different. He was not fighting for glory or survival alone. He was fighting for the tiny life that trusted him. He pulled a lever, releasing a cluster of old mines from the ship's rear. They drifted silently into the asteroid field. Seconds later, one of the pirate ships struck a mine, erupting in a fireball that lit up the rocks. The explosion rattled the asteroids, sending debris flying. For a moment, chaos filled the field. Elias used the distraction to dive deeper, twisting the ship through narrow gaps only a skilled pilot could manage. But 2 pirate ships still followed, and they were closing in. Inside the ship, alarms screamed louder. The hull groaned under another hit. Elias's hands moved quickly across the controls, but he knew the truth. The iron wind could not last forever. Then, something unexpected happened. The baby dragon, still trembling, climbed onto the console. Its glowing eyes stared at the flashes of enemy fire outside the window. Its small chest rose and fell quickly, like it was trying to breathe out something more than air. Elias noticed. "No," he said softly. "You're not ready. Don't push yourself." But the dragon ignored him. It opened its tiny mouth and let out a weak roar. At first, only smoke came out. But then, just for a heartbeat, its body glowed brightly, and a spark of fire burst into the air. The fire was small, barely a flicker, but Elias's eyes widened. "You," he whispered. "You're waking up." The pirates fired again, their blast shaking the ship. Elias pulled the controls, but an asteroid blocked the path ahead. There was no way out. The dragon stood shakily on the console, its wings twitching under the cloth, its eyes glowing brighter. The fear in its gaze mixed with something else now. Anger. Elias realized the truth in that moment. The creature wasn't just weak. It was waiting for the right time, the right reason to awaken. He whispered quickly, "Then do it. Show them who you are." The dragon let out another roar. This time, fire exploded from its mouth. Bright, wild, uncontrolled. The flames burst against the asteroid ahead, breaking it apart into glowing fragments. The path was clear. Elias didn't waste a second. He pushed the engines, racing through the opening as the debris crashed behind them. The pirate ships tried to follow, but one was struck by falling rock, tearing its hull apart. The last ship pulled back, unwilling to chase further. The iron wind shot out of the asteroid field, engines blazing, leaving the wreckage behind. For a long moment, silence filled the cockpit. The alarms faded, the shaking stopped. Only the steady hum of the engines remained. The dragon collapsed onto the console, exhausted from its effort. Its tiny body trembled, smoke curling from its mouth. Elias quickly lifted it into his arms. "You did it," he said softly. "You actually did it." The dragon blinked weakly, eyes glowing faintly before closing. It was too tired to respond, but Elias felt the warmth of its body, the fire that had finally awakened. He leaned back in his chair, breathing hard but smiling. "Looks like I wasn't wrong about you after all." Far behind them, news of the fight spread quickly. Raiders spoke of a human who dared to protect a dying dragon. They spoke of fire awakening where none should exist. And soon, the entire galaxy would hear the same story. The weak little dragon was no longer invisible. It had shown its first spark of power. And now, more eyes than ever would turn toward Elias and his unlikely companion. The iron wind floated silently through deep space, scarred from battle but still alive. Captain Elias sat in the cockpit, his hand resting on the controls, while the baby dragon lay curled in his lap. It had been 2 days since the fight in the asteroid field. The dragon had saved them, but the effort nearly broke its small body. It slept most of the time now, its breathing shallow but steady, its tiny chest rising and falling against Elias's arm. He watched it quietly, his mind full of thoughts. "You gave everything you had back there," he whispered, "and you almost burned yourself out." The dragon stirred, opening one glowing eye. Its gaze met his, weak but determined. Elias could see it. Even in exhaustion, the fire inside it refused to die. But danger was not gone. The pirates had been defeated, but they were only the beginning. Word spread fast in the galaxy. Whispers of a human carrying a baby dragon, whispers of fire awakening in the weakest creature, whispers of something impossible. And when whispers spread, hunters followed. On the third night, the scanners lit up again. Multiple signatures appeared, larger ships this time, stronger, faster. Not just pirates. These were organized. Bounty hunters. Elias cursed under his breath. They won't stop. He carried the dragon to the med bay, placing it gently in the blankets. The creature looked at him with worried eyes, sensing his unease. Elias rested a hand on its head. "Listen to me, little one. You don't have to fight again. Not yet. Let me handle this." But deep inside, he knew the truth. The hunters weren't after him. They were after the dragon. And sooner or later, the creature would have to make its own choice. The attack came suddenly. The bounty hunters cornered the iron wind near a dying star, their ships surrounding it like wolves around prey. A voice rang through the comms, calm but cold. "Human, you carry something rare, something priceless. Hand over the dragon, and you will walk away alive. Refuse, and we will burn you to ash." Elias's hands tightened on the controls. "You'll get nothing from me." Weapons locked on the ship. The hunters opened fire. The iron wind shook violently as blasts tore into its shields. Panels sparked, alarms screamed. Elias fought to maneuver, but the enemy ships were faster, stronger. He dodged what he could, but each hit tore away more of his defenses. The dragon stumbled into the cockpit, its small claws slipping on the metal floor. It let out a weak cry, seeing the fire and chaos outside the windows. Elias turned sharply. No, stay back. It's too dangerous. But the dragon did not move. Its eyes glowed brighter, fire building inside them. The hunters pressed harder. One ship latched onto the iron wind with magnetic claws, dragging it down. Another prepared its boarding tubes. Elias's mind raced. He could fight off raiders. He could outfly pirates. But against this fleet he had no chance. Not alone. He looked at the dragon. It was trembling, but not with fear. With something else. A decision. Elias shook his head. You're still weak. If you try again, you might burn yourself out completely. You might. The dragon climbed onto the console. Its tiny wings stretched as far as the cloth allowed. Its body glowed with rising light, brighter than ever before. It let out a roar. Not weak this time. Not broken, but strong, fierce, defiant. Elias's eyes widened. You've already chosen, haven't you? The moment came like a storm. The dragon's body erupted with fire and light, filling the cockpit with golden glow. Energy surged from its scales, sparks dancing across the panels. The ship trembled, but not from enemy fire. From the awakening power of the creature inside it. Elias shielded his eyes as the dragon released a blast of pure flame through the front viewport. But it was no ordinary fire. It bent and twisted in space, like a living storm, striking out at the nearest hunter ship. The blast tore through its shields and ripped the vessel apart in a single strike. The hunters froze in shock. A creature so small should not have carried such power. But before they could regroup, the dragon roared again, sending waves of fire across the battlefield. Asteroids cracked. Ships burned. The hunters scattered, panicked. Inside the cockpit, Elias watched with awe. He had believed the dragon carried something inside, but he never expected this. You're not weak, he whispered. You're a star waiting to rise. But power came with cost. The dragon staggered after the final blast, its glow fading, smoke curling from its mouth, collapsed on the console, trembling with exhaustion. Elias rushed forward, scooping it into his arms. Its eyes flickered weakly, its breath unsteady. No, stay with me, he said urgently. Don't leave me now. You've come too far. The dragon let out a faint sound, pressing its head against his chest. Even in weakness, it had no regret. It had made its choice. It would fight, even if it burned itself to ashes. Elias felt a surge of emotion, stronger than any he had known in battle. He held the creature tightly. You're mine now, and I swear, no one will ever take you from me. Not while I live. The hunters retreated, their fleet broken and scattered. The story of the human and his dragon would spread even faster now. Entire worlds would hear of the weak creature that destroyed warships with fire from its soul. And though the dragon slept, exhausted in Elias's arms, its choice had already changed everything. No longer was it a forgotten, dying creature in a cage. No longer was it a prize for hunters. It was a fighter, partner, a legend in the making. And together with Elias, it was about to set the galaxy on fire. The galaxy was wide, endless, and cruel. But even in its darkest corners, whispers spread faster than light. Whispers of a human captain. Whispers of a dying baby dragon that should never have survived. Whispers of fire that could tear apart ships. Fire that came from a creature no one believed in. And with every whisper, the story grew larger. A week had passed since the battle. The iron wind drifted silently between the stars, its hull still damaged, but alive. Inside, Captain Elias sat near the med bay, watching over the baby dragon. The creature slept in soft blankets, its tiny chest rising and falling. It had burned so much of itself in that fight. For days it barely moved. Elias stayed by its side, feeding it, telling it stories, reminding it that it was not alone. Every time he thought the dragon might fade, its eyes opened, glowing faintly with that stubborn fire. It refused to die, just like him. You're stronger than they ever knew, Elias whispered. stroking its scaled head. And one day, they'll know your name. But peace never lasted long. The comms crackled. A voice came through, urgent, panicked. This is the freighter Silverpath. We are under attack by raiders near the Yara Belt. Any ship, please respond. Elias clenched his jaw. The smart choice was to stay hidden. His ship was barely holding together. His dragon was still weak, and hunters were surely still searching for him. But he remembered the cage. He remembered how the galaxy looked at the dragon, weak, worthless, ready to die. He remembered the pirates, the hunters, all those who preyed on the helpless. He looked at the dragon. Its eyes were half open now, watching him silently. You think we should help them? Elias asked. The dragon gave a faint growl. Weak, but full of spirit. Elias smiled. Yeah, I thought so too. The iron wind roared back to life. Engines burned, thrusters fired, and the ship turned toward the Yara Belt. When Elias arrived, chaos greeted him. Raiders swarmed around the Silverpath, blasting at its shields, tearing into its hull. The freighter was moments away from destruction. The raiders laughed, confident in their numbers. Then they saw the battered iron wind dropping out of warp. They laughed harder. One old human ship against us. He must be suicidal. Elias didn't answer. His hand rested on the controls. His other hand rested on the dragon, who now stood beside him on the console. Its body glowed faintly, still weak, but its spirit burned bright. Ready, Elias whispered. The dragon let out a small but sharp roar. The battle was quick. The raiders rushed at them, expecting easy prey. But they didn't face a dying creature anymore. The dragon spread its wings, fire crackling across its scales. With each roar, bursts of flame tore through the enemy ships. Not as strong as before, but precise, controlled. Elias piloted with skill, weaving between blasts, striking back with perfect aim. Together, man and dragon moved as one. The raiders panicked. Their numbers meant nothing against the firestorm that hunted them. One by one, their ships burned and scattered. The freighter crew watched in shock. A single human ship had saved them. No, not just a human ship. Something more. When the battle ended, the Silverpath sent their thanks. Who are you? The captain asked through the comms, still stunned. Elias looked at the dragon, who sat proudly beside him, chest puffed out despite its tiny size. He smiled. Just a traveler, Elias said. With a friend. He cut the comms before they could ask more. But the truth was already out there. The legend had begun. Across the galaxy, rumors spread like wildfire. They called it the dragon that shouldn't have lived. They called it the flame of the forgotten shelter. They called Elias the man who defied the galaxy. Some laughed, saying it was just a story. Others swore they had seen it with their own eyes. But whether they believed or not didn't matter. The whispers grew, the legend spread, and hunters sharpened their blades. Because now, the human and his dragon were not just survivors. They were a threat. Elias knew it too. As he stood in the quiet cockpit, watching stars drift past, he whispered to his companion, "They're going to come for us. Stronger than before. Bigger than before. Do you understand?" The dragon tilted its head, then pressed it against his chest. Its body glowed softly, flames flickering across its scales. Elias chuckled. "Yeah, I figured you wouldn't be scared." He looked out at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, enemies waited. But so did destiny. And he would face both. Not alone, but side by side with the creature everyone had once abandoned. That night, as the iron wind slipped into hyperspace, Elias spoke softly, almost to himself. "They thought you were weak. They thought you were dying. But you've already proved them wrong." He looked at the dragon, now curled against him, its small body warm like living fire. "You're not just a dragon," he whispered. "You're hope. You're proof that even the smallest can burn brightest. And together, we're going to change everything." The dragon let out a soft roar, as if it understood. And so, under the endless stars, the beginning of a legend was written. Not of a forgotten baby in a cage. Not of a weak creature left to die. But of a bond between man and dragon. A bond strong enough to shake the galaxy. The legend of fire. The legend of survival. The legend of humanity's flame. And it was only the beginning.